The moment is here, you can stop your search. It's Comics by Perch.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. I visited a comic shop in Fort Worth called Fanboys Marketplace. And I've been slowly making my way around, just kind of visiting all of them, getting a sense of it. And most comic stores are about the same as probably what you're used to. They've got the new comics up on a wall. They've got some back issues there. They've got some trade paperbacks. They've got Funko Pops, kind of the assortment. And it's for better or worse, most comic stores are pretty much cloned from the same stuff. So imagine my surprise. So I go into this place, Fanboys Marketplace, and first of all, it's huge. So you walk in and you're kind of taken aback because it's the size of a large drugstore, like a Rite Aid or a CVS, or maybe even a little bigger than that. It's kind of like a small Target. And when you go in, what strikes you is it looks like a convention because the entire store is laid out with different kind of sub booths. So like pop-up stores within a store. So if you've ever been to a comic convention and you go to the show floor, not the artist alley, but the place where you've got vendors there, what you find is that this shop is almost exactly the same. There's a little booth for t-shirts, there was a booth there for manga, there's a booth there for anime, there's a booth there for comic drawings, kind of local artists. There was several booths with back issues, kind of sorted into different things. There were toys. It was just like going to a convention. It also had one other thing in common with a convention, which was there weren't new comics there. Now, let me pause here for a second. Some conventions do have new comics in them, but many don't. If you go to San Diego Comic-Con, if you go to Emerald City, many comic conventions have lots of things on the show floor, but the one thing they don't have is new comics that came out that week or, the last couple weeks. And this is something that, has been true for a long time. Again, some conventions, they'll put some new comics in there, but usually they don't have them. They focus on the back issues, the toys, the merchandise, all that other stuff. And you probably never really noticed this or never really thought about it because you're in a convention, there's guests of current writers, current artists, they're talking about current comics. But if you go to a comic convention and you try and buy the latest issue of the Hulk or Thor or Superman, you're going to have a hard time doing it, which might strike you as a little strange, but you're at a convention, you're there for the experience, and it doesn't really register. So when I went into this Fanboys Marketplace, it was fascinating because you had all these different these racks and these different booths. You had different people within the store that were selling their wares. There was a store, but then there were stores within the store, and no new comics at all. And big collection of Funko, big collection of waifu pillows that you could hug and presumably hump. There was again tons of back issues, but no new comics. So first off, I thought this was a really clever approach. You take kind of an old store, you don't spend a lot of time in decorating it, you invite other people to come in and vend, and you get kind of this, flea market / comic shop kind of environment. Because they didn't sink a lot of money into the layout or the upkeep or any of that. I mean, well, not the upkeep, but, it wasn't themed. It looked like a convention hall with racks in it. And so that's got to be relatively cheap to pull together. Rents can't be that bad. You go into a larger store that they're having trouble, getting a renter in for, it can work. So I thought this was clever. It showed some initiative. It was a clever thing to do. So I went and asked the people at the front, and like many comic stores, the people at the front were the owners. And I said, hey, neat store, interesting. How'd you come up with this concept? And they're like, well, there are a lot of people who wanted to sell comic book things because of the popularity of the movies and just superheroes in general. There's a lot of local people who have things to sell, but they don't have enough money to have their own store. They don't have enough material to have their own store. So they do this. And they pay a small fee to vend there, and that's how it works out. Basically, the rent is covered by the people coming in to sub-rent inside, And then the actual store has a small stand of their own, so they're able to sell a little bit. But yeah, it's not a huge money-making thing, but it's profitable, keeps the lights on, works. So then I asked him, I said, so do you have new comics? Did I miss them? Are there new comics in here somewhere? And they kind of glanced at each other, and they this husband and wife team, and they go, no, we don't have new comics here. And then they were quick to go, but there is a store, up the street about a mile and a half that does have new comics. And, they get like, here, you can go to this address. They're very friendly about it. And I said, so why aren't you selling new comics? And they kind of looked at each other again. And they go, it's too much hassle for not enough return. And then the guy that kind of, chuckled a little bit and goes, pointing over at these beach blankets that had comic characters on them, goes, those are more profitable over there. And I'm like, no, but really, I mean, people, you're doing you have all this other stuff. You can't, you don't have new comics. And it's like, so they go, no, the reason being is you've got Diamond, you got Penguin Random House, you have returns, you have product that's damaged. And he's like, the problem with new comics, we sold new comics, we tried new comics, but it was so unreliable that if we didn't get our stock or we didn't get, the right things in, then the customer would just go down the street to another shop and we'd lose the sale entirely. So it was not worth it. We sell the stuff we have. And I said, is it the quality? Is it because if you go online, you hear people talk about this, that comic shops are giving up selling new comics and they're just selling back issues, and it's because of all the woke content and everything else. And the one's like, no, it's not the quality. It's just they cost too much for us to carry and make a profit. It's easier and cheaper to sell the blankets. And so, we talked for a little while longer and everything else. And it really comes down to, it's not the content per se. It is the fact that at a high price point and having to deal with Diamond and Penguin Random House and others, and the fact that the stock often comes in destroyed, and the fact that it's unpredictable, what's going to sell, what's not going to sell. The guy commented that, you're ordering along on a comic book and then suddenly they switch the creative team, and then you're stuck because people don't go to the new creative team. They want to follow a creative team they liked. It's just too much of a headache. And as they're going down this kind of long laundry list of reasons, they weren't wrong. It's painful to stock new comics. And it's one of those cases where I wish I could get, Jim Lee, Marie Javins, Joe Quesada, CB Cebulski. They need to go into these stores. And I'm sure they've seen it before because these guys have gone to conventions. And I think the canary in the coal mine, or the hint was, yeah, why weren't there new comics in the convention, in every convention? Why is it you go to San Diego Comic-Con and you don't have new comics there? Hell, you go to DC and Marvel's booth when they would display, and they didn't have new comics for sale. Why doesn't DC sell their current new comics on the show floor at San Diego Comic-Con? You'd think that was what better place? Everybody's coming for comic books, and you own the comic books. You're the creator of those comic books. Don't you think you could put a wall of your, the comics of the last 2 months, maybe get some creators to come in and kind of sign them and just have them there? Why not? And the answer is it's too hard. So I know there's a lot of videos, a lot of commentary that goes on about this content is too PC, or this is just too social agenda stuff and everything else. But what was interesting is that the long list of reasons why this shop, Fanboys, didn't sell new comics, they never mentioned social agendas or any of that. They purely mentioned that it was too painful, that it was just there's too much nonsense in there to reasonably turn a profit. So they don't. And they figured out a business model. They figured out a way that they could just do without. And, and it was that comment at the very end that kind of the light bulb over my head was, well, the conventions don't sell them either. And yeah, the conventions don't. If new comics are going to thrive, new comics now, it can't be this difficult. It's not that difficult for manga. It's not that difficult for Scholastic. It's not that difficult for, for hell, over in Europe, it's not that difficult for companies to sell comics here. So why is it in the US? Why is it that these major publishers that have the financial backing of much bigger companies, why is it that it's just hard for a retailer to stock new comics? Why is it this hard? Why is it that they'd rather just go to Funko or go to, manga pillows that you can hump in your sleep? Why is that easier? Shouldn't be. Anyway, something to think about. Thanks for listening.